Hey everyone, welcome to the Krista Rose Love channel. It's pretty early in the morning. I have my cup of coffee here, but I wanted to make sure I got this video out to you guys. Today's video is my top tips for a successful relaxer stretch. The best way to think about stretching is to break down the techniques by category. So I would say techniques affiliated with the scalp, techniques with the line of demarcation, and then 3 techniques with your ends. So I'm starting off with the scalp because in order to have healthy hair, you have to start off with the scalp, right? And I know it sounds pretty intuitive, but I wanted to make sure I drew some attention to it because it is very important, especially with stretching your hair, to make sure that you're taking proper care of your scalp. First, it's important to think about your scalp as an extension of your lifestyle. So your dietary regimen, your exercise regimen, all those things factor into how your scalp functions and the health of your scalp and ultimately the hair that grows out of your scalp. I highly recommend eating proteins, fruits, and vegetables. You might want to also consider taking a hair, skin, and nail vitamin. I like them because I know that when I take those types of vitamins, my roots are just really thick, and I like the fact that it makes my nails stronger and stuff like that. But if you're unsure which vitamin to take, do your research, and if you're really unsure, consider talking to your doctor about which vitamin will work better for you. Consider getting a humidifier for your house because a humidifier helps prevent your scalp from getting too dry. Another thing to keep in mind is to limit the amount of stress in your life. And I know it sounds like just a grand statement like, oh, just cut down on the stress, but I mean, it really does take a toll on your hair, on your skin, on everything. And so you really want to make sure that you cut down on stress because ultimately that can have an impact on your hair. We've talked about this before in a previous video, so I want to give just a little bit more detail about why. Your immune system's ability to respond to organisms like yeast, for example, which can wreak havoc on your hair and can cause scalp irritation, is negatively impacted by a chemical called cortisol, which is produced when you go through a lot of stress. So cut down on that stress, cut down on that cortisol, and your hair will thank you. Massaging your scalp is also a great idea, especially during your stretch because it just feels really great feeling your roots and stuff like that. And I like the fact that massaging your scalp increases blood flow to the scalp, which increases the amount of nutrients going past the follicle cells, and that benefits your hair overall. Consider using oils like peppermint or rosemary or lavender because they're said to add extra stimulation to your scalp when you do a scalp massage. Plus they smell amazing too. So now moving on to the line of demarcation, there is a lot more focus on that line when people talk about stretching because ultimately that's where a lot of hair breakage happens. But as I said before, if your scalp isn't in its best shape, the roots growing in may not be in their best shape, and then the problems add up from there. So make sure your scalp is taken care of. And now moving on to the line of demarcation, my first tip is to embrace your new growth. Embracing your new growth will help you baby your new growth and will also help you baby that area that's most sensitive, which is that line of demarcation, that connector between the new growth and the relaxed ends. If that means you have to switch over to like more protective styles and stuff like that, so be it. Go ahead and start rocking those ponytails and buns and all that stuff that will help you really take the stress off of your new growth, off that line of demarcation, and just give your hair a break. Not literally, but figuratively. Give your hair a break from all the manipulative things that you do to your hair to make it look a certain way. You really just want to adjust more towards an easier type of styling process. A key thing with that line of demarcation is the moisture and protein balance in your hair. I highly recommend every time you wash and condition your hair, especially as you get deeper into the stretch, to always do a deep conditioning treatment. That means not just putting a deep conditioner in your hair and letting it sit in your hair for 5 to 7 minutes, but if you have a dryer at home, putting your favorite deep conditioner in your hair, putting on a plastic cap, and sitting under a dryer for like about 10 minutes or so, depending on how long you want to go. But I usually don't stay under the dryer for more than 20 minutes. You want to make sure that you incorporate protein into your stretching process because getting protein treatments to many just doesn't seem like a necessity, but your hair needs it in order to prevent breakage and also to increase your elasticity in your hair. The reason why elasticity is so important is because you want to be able to take a hair strand and pull it and not have it snap when you put the slight amount of tension on it. You want to be able to pull your hair and have some tug ability on the hair strand, and protein helps you do that. So if you don't plan to go to a salon for a protein treatment, consider doing one at home. You can get the Apogee protein treatment, and it's recommended that you do that about every 6 weeks or so to make sure that you're getting enough protein treatment in your hair. Alright, so combing methods. As you get deeper into your stretch, your roots get really, really thick and the texture changes a lot. So if you are so used to taking your comb and going from root all the way to tip, with your combing method, you'll find that as you go deeper into your stretch, it becomes a lot harder to do that. So my technique is to use my fingers first, and I start at the bottom of my hair and I work my way up the hair strands all the way up to my scalp, and I just detangle my way with my fingers all the way up to my scalp. And then when I'm comfortable with the fact that there are no tangles in there, then I'll take a wide tooth comb and then I'll start from the ends again and gently work my way up to the roots. And up here it's a little bit tougher to comb through, but I just take my time and I'm very gentle. At least when I do that, I don't have a whole bunch of the hair breakage in my comb, because I know I was very gentle and I did the best I could of making sure I wasn't putting too much force in my hair and causing unnecessary breakage, especially at that line of demarcation. Alright, so styling methods. I am a big fan of buns during the stretch. I mean, I just got a relaxer, and as you can see, I have my hair in a bun right now. Buns are so absolutely crucial for protective styling, ponytails work too, anything that just stops you from needing heat on your ends in particular, because your ends are the weakest. So you want to make sure that with that line of demarcation, you're very careful with the type of heat that you put on your line of demarcation. So when I'm blow drying my hair, for example, I'm just very gentle with how I blow out those roots. And also with the flat iron, you want to make sure you're not putting too much heat on that area, because ultimately you have to baby that line of demarcation, and too much heat and too much maneuvering and too much manipulation with your hair, especially in that area, can cause your hair to snap off, or just eventually snap off because of too much heat. So my last tip with the line of demarcation is you want to watch the floor around you when you're styling your hair. I don't mean literally watching it, but you want to look down every now and again and see if you see a whole bunch of breakage around you, because ultimately if you're stretching and you're dealing with a whole bunch of breakage, you want to know. And you don't want to be surprised when you get your next relaxer and you wonder what happened, why don't I have a certain amount of length or XYZ, because when you're done stretching over a really long period of time, you're expecting something. You're expecting more length, you're expecting new growth and all that stuff. So you just want to be mindful of any type of hair breakage that's going on. So when you're styling your hair, check your combs, check your brushes, and also look at the floor, the bathroom floor around you, or wherever you do your hair. At least that way you can be mindful of any crazy changes with your hair that you can fix before it gets too late. Something to keep in mind if you do have any type of hair breakage, you want to see if it's actually hair breakage or hair shedding. If it's hair shedding, you're going to see like a little white bulb on the end of the hair. If it's hair breakage, it's just going to be a snapped piece of hair. So my last tip is about the ends. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your ends, that you're sufficiently moisturizing them with something that actually penetrates the cuticle of your hair. I love using organic natural coconut oil. I think it does a great job with penetrating the hair strands and getting your hair, especially your ends, really moisturized. Wrapping your hair is great, because after putting, for example with me, I like putting the coconut oil in my hair and then wrapping my hair up into a silk or satin scarf. And I find that it just really helps with making sure the moisture is penetrating the hair overnight, and in the morning my hair feels so silky after doing that. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that you're getting your ends trimmed, because it's so easy to be like, well, I don't want to trim my ends because I don't want to lose length, but you're going to lose even more length if you have split ends and stuff like that. So I self-trim. I do a search and destroy method. I'll put my technique below this video and a link below, and I try not to cut off too much and stuff like that. If you choose to go to a hairstylist to get your ends trimmed, just make sure that they're not cutting off too much length, and that brings me to my next point. You have to get used to uneven length when you're stretching your relaxer and you're looking for new length after your stretch and you get a relaxer, because your hair doesn't always grow evenly. So for me, for example, the middle of my hair tends to grow longer and I guess faster than the sides of my hair. So if I kept getting an even cut across when someone cut my ends, I would never really see growth. I mean, I would, but it would take a lot longer. So if you are going someplace to get your ends trimmed, you want to make sure that you tell them that I'm okay with the uneven length. I just want the ends clipped for split ends. Some things to keep in mind after you're done stretching is when you get a relaxer, you want to make sure you use a relaxer that works for you. Just because a relaxer worked for somebody else does not automatically mean it'll work for you. So find one that you know is going to work for your scalp and your hair. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you get the relaxer, you don't want to keep the relaxer in until you get bone straight hair. You want to be able to at least leave a little bit of wave in the hair so that you're not chemically over processing your hair. Well, I hope that helped. Good luck with your stretching. I have more videos on the way, so stay tuned.